Internet, and welcome back to another episode of the Geek and Dad Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Johnston, and today I am joined by not one, but two fine gentlemen. These two fine gentlemen happen to run another parenting-focused podcast called Digital Dads. Over on the Digital Dads, it is Brent Basham and Andrew Curry who do the talking, the hashing out, and learning how to parent in real time. And they focus a lot on their Rules of the Roundtable and the Digital Dads Roundtable. In this episode, we go into what that is. We get a couple of favorites from each of them, and we kind of get an idea of how they got started and what kind of propelled them into where they are today. So, without further ado, please enjoy. Andrew, Brent, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, man.
For those of you who don't know, Andrew and Brent have their own podcast on parenting called The Digital Dads, and they've been running for over a year now, at least, because what episode are we on now? Not including the roundtable reminders.
We're at 76 tonight. So.
76 tonight. Oh, so is this a recording night for y'all too?
That's a release night for us.
That's right. Tuesday. Yep. And there it shows up on my feed. Yep. So yeah, these guys have been doing the whole podcasting thing about parenting and technology a little bit longer than I have. And it was funny because I remember doing my research to see if there were any other parenting podcasts that focused on anything geek or nerd related whatsoever. And Andrew and Brent are the only two, I guess I should say the only one podcast who showed up that fit that mold. And if you haven't listened to any of their stuff, I'm going to tell you right now, just skip to number 55, where they go straight into their roundtable and why they do what they do. And it is great stuff. So
I think Brent prompted you before the show, didn't he?
No, I prompt on every episode for that. Although I do have to say, Kyle, if you really want to commiserate or enjoy my misery, rather, go back and listen to episode 11. It's where I had the talk with my son. We used to talk about that episode a lot, and we did a Radio Lab style as best we could. But basically, my son wanted to watch some movies, some superhero movies, and Dumb and Dumber, and we had just started the podcast. It was episode 11, like I said, and we used to tell this a lot, but we haven't in a while. So we're playing basketball outside, and Cody comes running over to me, and he's like, "Well, Dad, I heard you guys talking last night, and I was trying to find out if I could watch Dumb and Dumber 2, and you said I probably could, but I heard you and Mommy say pretty soon we're going to have the talk. What's the talk?" All right. And
fun.
Yeah. Well, so my first instinct was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. I haven't even been thinking about this. My next instinct as a new podcaster, you may be able to relate, was to go grab my microphone. And I recorded that conversation. I recorded the conversation with me telling my wife. I didn't prep her because I wanted authenticity. She probably still holds a grudge and some resentment to this day. I didn't prep her for that. We went and did I recorded me and her, going and looking up on YouTube and all that stuff, trying to find some different resources, and then I recorded the actual talk all the way through, and I spliced it together. Oh, and me talking to my dad as well about him giving me the talk. So. And then Andrew got to laugh at me the whole way through as we kind of spliced together.
Yeah, we planned a really professional commentary, but then it just ended up cutting into me just cracking up. Let's just roll with this. This is better.
This is very enjoyable.
Awesome.
It was very one-sided, very enjoyable, but we wanted to delve into it. I will tell you, if you ever jump into something like that, it's super hard to stitch together a narrative out of a bunch of audio clips and trying to put something together because it's so disjointed in it. Just so much effort. I have a lot of respect for those guys. You always hear it takes so much time to put that stuff together, but until you go and try to do it, as the only episode to date, we had big aspirations back then. We're going to do more episodes like that, and we've not done a one. So give you any indication.
I've always wondered what it would be like to try to do that, This American Life NPR style podcast, but I think I'll hold off for a little while.
What you don't realize too, is when they do that, they have 8 people working for them or more,
at least
putting it together.
So let's take a step back. So Brent, you've had to have the talk, which means you have a kid old enough. Let's go through where both of y'all stand with children and all that fun stuff real quick for the listeners trying to get to know you.
Yeah, sure. So I've got, obviously Cody's 11. I've got 2 daughters, 2 little redhead daughters. We call them, we call Taylor, my 8-year-old, all kinds of nicknames: TJ, Tater Tot, Taylor Joy, just a range. And then Kenna is 6. And the cool thing about our show, one of the things that I love about it, is we've taken, that episode was kind of came out of the idea we take and record audio clips of our kids and we splice it into the show. Not like that to that extent, but most episodes have a little bit, because we wanted to try to show, I love it because I get to interact with my kids and I get to see a side of them and a time capsule of them that I never would have gotten otherwise. But hopefully the audience gets something out of that as well.
Yeah, we started that. This is Andrew. I have a daughter who is 5. She's about to turn 6 on July 30th, so she's excited about that. But we started doing the kids on the show like that. I think it was because we did a Star Wars episode, right? It was episode 6, and
Star Wars.
Yeah, because we started the podcast without any plan or any. We had been talking about ideas and things forever, and we was like, podcast maybe, like, we just have to start this or else we're never going to do it.
Man, is that not the truth?
So we started before we knew the crux of it, of being digital immigrants and raising digital natives and all that stuff, and how we stand at a weird time in history. That was the premise, but we didn't know how the movie was going to not end. It's still going, but like where it was going to take us from there. Mm-hmm. And I think it got to be, we started like in October, and I think around that Thanksgiving, that first Force Awakens trailer came out, and I'm a super big Star Wars thing, and that changed
a year ahead of time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it just changed my world. And then I was just getting Alex at that point. She was 4, getting her into like the little Star Wars books and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, this would be a neat opportunity to.
We record the kids?
Yeah, just for the fun of it. I mean, we've started the show. As you know, when you start a podcast, you're getting 5 listens an episode. We don't care. Let's have fun with this one. Let's just have a fun episode. And we did that one, and then we kind of took a month or so off, really, because we kind of did that for fun, and then we just kind of got bogged down in the holidays and whatnot. And then we just started noticing a lot of attention and traffic. And all of a sudden we noticed that we were in an iTunes parenting section based on that episode alone. Because the other ones before that are not good.
Which clearly shows you there's no vetting process.
Yeah. But I think it was based on that, just one sample of this type of format where we have the kids integrated throughout, and it's fun, and we're asking them questions and really kind of displaying how we talk to our kids, and not like in a talking down kind of way. Because like you mentioned, when you looked on to like other podcasts, there's a lot of parenting podcasts out there, and and a lot of the ones we found, not to disparage any, but it feels like it's very talking down and cutesy. And then we felt like for dads, like especially like geek dads, nerd dads, people like us, or just trying to regular people, we think for males especially, that turns a lot of people off. Yeah. Like, oh, being a cool dad's a dorky, And so that's the approach we want to take. And so once we kind of hit that Star Wars episode with the kids, the show became like 500% more fun, because it just became a blast and entertaining, and see what they said every week. But also it became an interesting thing that we haven't seen before.
Nice. So the original idea, correct me if I'm wrong, you said the original idea wasn't necessarily parenting.
Well, it was just, okay. I mean, yeah, it was still parenting. It was digital dads, and it's the same stuff we talk about. It's about,
but let me caveat that though. I think when you say parenting, we didn't come from a position where we felt like, hey, we're these guys and we're going to come out and show you how to parent. Well, our hope was, hey, we're going to come out here. We knew smartphones were a problem. We knew, pornography. We knew technology, like he said, not to gloss over digital immigrants trying to raise digital natives. That's so cliche to kind of say, but the reality of that is, here we are, we're in an era where everything's changing so fast, technology's coming in, laws can't even keep up, so we don't know how to do what we don't know how to raise our children. And Andrew and I, if anything, we thought, well, we're having these conversations, we're interested, we're dads, we also like nerdy stuff, but we like to have fun, and that's part of it for sure, but we want to kind of explore some of these things. So we didn't really set out we didn't have an agenda. We kind of just went off in that westerly direction. direction, and we didn't really know where it would take us. And really the formation of connecting with listeners and now the Facebook group, that's kind of helped guide where we go with it, kind of based on what everybody's kind of told us and what feedback we've gotten throughout the time we've been doing it. But no, when we started, I guarantee you, Kyle, you are far less clueless right now than we were. I promise you.
I don't know about that because I can't imagine I'm too much younger than you guys.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. We had no idea. We knew we had some microphones and we knew we could record.
And it took us a year. I think a past couple episodes. What is it, like a few episodes ago? I thought of the term, and now this is the motto of the show. It's like we share our experience, not our expertise.
Yeah,
that's basically what it is. Because we don't know. So,
and we mess up all the time, man.
But that's the best part about it, right? That is parenting. That's life in general. And it was interesting. So the inspiration to even come up with this podcast in the first place, I was on my way home, sitting in the driveway as I pulled up to the apartment, and I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast.
Nice.
And I was like, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And I want it to be something about technology and like geek pop culture and parenting and how those intertwine. And so literally I'm sitting there and I hop on iTunes and I go to the parenting section and I start looking, and I don't remember how far down y'all were or weren't.
We're not at the top. It's okay.
But the title said Digital Dads, and I was like, okay. And of course, that y'all were one of like the 10 or 15 that I clicked on to like start to subscribe, to start kind of sorting through. And the one thing that caught on with y'all is that it's just two dads having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's two dads having conversations about how do we integrate the technology that we have at our disposal today that was not at our disposal 10 years ago, with these little things that were tasked with keeping alive, that were tasked with teaching how to be good people, that were tasked with raising. And I was like, oh, these guys are onto something. So I'm not the only one who had this thought. That made me feel good.
Awesome.
But the thing that caught my attention the most, that really kind of cemented where y'all were, was when y'all had the round table and y'all had the 10 rules of the round table, or 10 rules or whatever you're calling them. And I know there's 10, and I don't want to give away the whole episode, but like pick like two of your, if you were to have to pick top two for each of you, what would your top two be?
Mine probably is, they're kind of opposite a little in a way. There's overlap within all of them, but for me, number one is probably We Have Fun. I believe that's rule number two. The thing is, I think that gets, and I'm sort of bipolar in that way. When I'm at my best, I'm cutting up, I'm laughing, I'm having a great time, and I think that's when I'm at my best relationally. I'm at my best, learning everything. Like that's just me at my best. It's my personality. It's how I'm kind of wired. And I think it's one of the single best ways that I'm able to connect with my children is really, connecting with them through fun, through play. Whether it be joking, whether it be tickling, whether it be something like that, laughter and smiles are evolved. We, in the book that we're going to be coming out with really soon, we actually have a ratio of fun, which is actually a mathematical formula that I've come up with, irony intended, sarcasm intended. And it's full on. I spent some time putting, leverage my mathematical background, put this together. But even that, I was trying to have fun with it, and I think that's when I'm at my best. So that's number one for me. And then number two, maybe leveling up. I think because, you're going to fall down. Life is really a series of mistakes and fall downs, and it's really, to quote the new Rocky film or whichever one it was, it's not Creed, but no, the one before that. So, but it's about getting back up, right, and getting a little stronger. But what he doesn't really hit on there, I think it's implied, is that you get up a little and you can you're a little bit stronger every time you get back up because you know a little bit more about who you are and what you're made of. And so there's so much out there and so many ways to grow and stretch. And if you're going to really be the leader your kids need you to be, you're not going to set an example of perfection. You're going to set an example of, look, here's all these things in my life, you know, obviously with reason what you're going to tell them, but all these things in my life that here's why I fell down, here's where I fell down. And look, here's what I was able to step up and accomplish. You know, I went back to college late in my life, you know, so those kinds of things I think are things that I put my time and effort into and intentionally. And the tendency for people is to not do that. And I think that's very unfortunate because we live in a time with technology and so many opportunities. I mean, look what you're doing right now. You're stretching yourself, you know, you're at your age, and we are, you know, going out and trying something new, creating a podcast, you know, putting your voice out there, doing something new and putting it in the world. And that was uncomfortable for me, as I'm sure parts of it probably were for you, you know, and that's okay. And I want my kids to know, yeah, I'm going to bump up into things. I'm going to fail. I'm going to be scared, and that's okay. I'm going to still level up. So those are probably my top two.
You know, what's interesting about these rules is that Brent had this idea to put rules together, and I think we saw it somewhere else to just have a kind of a mission statement somehow. And I was like, that's a cool idea. And he's like, why don't you edit my rules? And I was like, I don't know how to edit your rules, so I'll just make my own rules. And we had both had list of 15, then we combined them together, and now we might actually edit that list again still while we're doing this book. But to do so, it was a combination of
maybe two more.
Yeah, there might be two more. So yeah, I don't want to. One of the new ones might be my favorite, but so so in writing this book, which is going to be,
if you want to give a peek,
give him an exclusive. Give him an exclusive. Tell him.
Okay. Well, but I was
nudging. Go for it.
Well, that goes into this experience. So to write this book, we had to split them up, and we didn't go, this is your rule, this is my rule. Like that, we came up with it. We just said, you do that one, I'll do this one. You do that one, I'll do this one. Kind of. And we called them, but they go kind of even odd, right, Brent? They're not like
Yeah, they kind of did. They worked out that way.
It wasn't like we were picking our favorites at the time, but in writing them, that was the cool thing about doing this little ebook that's gonna be free. It's that we actually discovered what they were about. Because when you have to
on a deep level,
because I mean, we got it. And we discussed it, and we went over. It took us 2 or 3 weeks to put this list together, and even the little descriptions, but writing 1,000 words on each of these topics, and really just, I would be writing it, and it was a great experience because you would just, you know, I didn't know what I was going to write, but then you go, oh no, this is what this rule's about. I get it now. I finally get it, you know? And so my favorite, the one that's on the list, that's one of my favorite ones, ties into the nerd stuff, is that we love what we love when, and that goes into, you know, just teaching your kids. When you're a kid, if you go back and if you got bullied, you got picked on because you like nerdy stuff and the other kids didn't like it. Nowadays, it's probably not that big of an issue because nerd is the new cool. But in all aspects, sometimes kids like
maybe
weird things.
You know, Cody's going into middle school, and we just had a conversation, and you know he might be facing that a little bit. So I don't know if that's completely gone.
And a lot of these are thinking back when you're parenting. You're just thinking about what could you have told your little self then, and like the we love what we love. Like goes back and just do what you want to do. Don't, you know, kowtow to people that are cynical or whatever. That's not what you need to do. You need to like embrace the things that you like and kind of follow that lane, because that's where you're going to get somewhere in life, following your passions and stuff. So that's one of them, tied into a new one yet unreleased. I don't know exactly what it's going to be called. But one of the new ones is about being positive. We are positive. We stay positive. Because this might be, we did an episode about this, about how complaining might be killing you, about how scientifically they go into, like, you know, if you're a complainer, it, you know, changes your neurons and synapses and all that stuff. And all of these overlap in a way, but this is one of the ones that's tied to being intentional too. But it's like, it's not just about being positive about things coming out or movies and nerd stuff and YouTube comments and all that stuff, but just in life, there's so many people that we find, since we've been doing this, have like self-limiting thoughts and self-limiting actions. They don't do stuff they would want to do. Like, we both do a lot of different things. I've done graphic stuff and music stuff. Brent and I both went back to school for computer science, like when we were 30s and 40s, you know? So it's like,
not 40s. Come on, man.
Well, you're 30s. Well, okay. 20s. And I was into my 20s. You're the 30s.
All right.
Okay.
You had to separate it by a decade. All right.
It's still a decade, but it's 8 years. But we didn't go, well, we do this career, we can't do that, you know? And that's about the positivity too. It's about, we see so many people when we put stuff out, and even in the group, it's like, oh, I wish I could do stuff like that. I was like, you can do stuff like that. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing it.
Yeah, and
Go
I'm
ahead.
hopeful that that particular one will go into. I know you're going to be the one to write it, but I hope that'll go into a little bit of the idea that your paradigm, your frame of reference, your view of the world. We see the world as we are, not as it is. And so I hope that by saying, okay, we're choose to be positive. The key word there is choose, right? You have the ability, whether or not you want to, and you want to remain cynical about everything in the world. That's fine. Acknowledge the fact that you have the choice. That maybe there is a different way to see things, and maybe there are different consequences, that come from
Right.
that positive and negative. So I think just the idea of the mindset and the frame of mind and how important that is to what you do, what people, how your world is influenced is a big deal.
Yeah, because that ties into grit, that ties into all that stuff. My mom used to say that you can't, things happen to you. You can't help bad things happen to you sometimes, but you have a choice of how do you react to it. And that kind of ties into that positivity. And it also ties into stop crapping on movies that don't come out yet. Just wait till you see the movie, okay? That's a real thing. I
feel like this is referring to either Suicide Squad or Star Wars Rogue One.
It refers to anything because it's just I've seen it for years.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it used to happen in
It's
music
gonna be
blogs.
awful.
I was like, understand if you don't like it there, but you know what? There's a billion movies now. Why do you need to make a comment and just? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
And for anybody who hasn't listened to the show, you may hear me provoke this side of Andrew intentionally sometimes.
Oh yeah,
fun.
I just hate it.
That's funny. So both of y'all touched on something that's really interesting to me, and it's something that I currently am contemplating, and that is going back and or finishing school. Right now, I have a 2-year-old and a 2-week-old. And the idea of school is becoming more and more appealing just because, as I'm sure both of y'all realized once you got yours, the piece of paper that says you earned a degree, it can be pretty valuable.
Yeah.
There's still an argument that says it's not as valuable as it was, but it still holds value in our society today.
Especially in some fields, too.
Yes, definitely. Especially in the computer sciences area. Like anything technology, it holds a ton of value. What was y'all's experience going back? How old were the kids? What was the biggest struggle you had doing it? How did you balance school, work, family, hobbies, and decompression time? How did y'all work through that, and what was what was it like?
So for me, it was very difficult. I had a restaurant management background, so fortunately I had some flexibility in a lot of experience and some really good people that I worked with, so I was able to get a bit of a hookup there in terms of how I worked around it. But it was tough. I mean, definitely things shifted out of balance completely, I would say, with the family for quite some time, and I tried to make it up where I could, and we had a goal, and Shannon was really helpful and patient, and, as well, but it was very difficult juggling act, a lot of sacrifices the whole way. But I was so unhappy, and I knew deep down that I wasn't a restaurant guy. I just knew I was a computer guy, and I knew I'd made some choices and some things from, because, your parents have an impact on who you are and who you become, and there's no blame or anything associated. There's just, you just have to learn, and you just have to unpack how, and you're factoring in your own personality and everything else. So, it's not easy. I don't know 100% I would go back down that road, even though I really am happy with the outcome. It was really, really hard for me, man. Did I have Kenna at the time? I think I had 2 kids, but it was a challenge. Yeah, it was a challenge for sure.
For me, it was a little bit easier to get started because I didn't have Alex yet. Alex came halfway through that process, but it was still. But at that time, it was still hard because I also fell into that, and it goes into just doing what you want to do and following what you think could be cool for your life. Because I moved up to. I was born in Atlanta, and I moved towards South Georgia on the coast, and we moved back up here with my friends probably 10 years ago. And I was in a band then. I didn't care about jobs or something, so I got a job as a graphic designer. That we just had a guest in the show, my first boss, Chad, on our spanking episode.
Nice.
And he hired me, and I was making $9 an hour doing this, just graphic design job that I didn't know how to do. And I started learning it, but I really got into it. That started overtaking some band stuff and other things, and that led into web stuff. And once you start getting any of these digital products, you start realizing you run into coding. And Brent and I are the type of people that our first instinct is like, I need to fix this myself. I need to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
That's kind of a learning disability at times for us, because we need to understand the entire structure of something. So at that time,
good thing is, real quick, good thing is we did not. In fact, we have some illustrations in the ebook that we're coming out with, and we get somebody that's really awesome to do that for us, because you did not want to see my stick drawing illustrations of knights and all that stuff. So
No, I actually think that'd be pretty epic.
yeah.
well, that makes one. Maybe my kids.
But I got to that point. I was like, I think I should start programming as a hobby, but I don't have hobbies. If I get into something, it starts overtaking things, and that's really kind of, I like that idea too, going back to school, because it's tough. But if you're going to do things like that, make sure it's something you're passionate about or interested in. It wasn't like, oh, I want to go back and just get some kind of radiology degree so I can make some money.
No, and I'll tell you, for anybody that's considering that, particularly for computer science or these kinds of things, it's not a magic bullet. So once you get out, they're still going to want experience. So you're probably going to end up taking something that's relatively low.
And
it
and
depends.
it's like everything else. It's most things in life, the things you don't need a degree for, and even the things you need a degree for, it's not about what you do in school or formally. It's about what the things you do, the projects you do, and the things you do outside of it.
Yeah.
And kind of speaking to the fact that, if you think people out there thinking about, they don't like Brent saying he doesn't like where his life was. He thought he could do, he was like, I could do books and podcasts, or maybe not the time you're thinking that, but you think you want to do things, you want to get involved, just following a direction and not knowing where it's going to lead, because that's where Brent and I met, was in school, because we were in a couple classes together, and he approached me and wanted to do graphics for some project. And I was like, no, I didn't say that. I said yes, but we just started talking. I think the funny thing is, Brent and I, we met each other and we instantly knew that we are two people that like to work on ideas. We're big thinkers. We we got an idea, let's do this. And I think originally, Brent, we had 8 people at a big meeting, right?
Yeah.
I think we had about 8 people at this restaurant. What do we want to work on? And I started spinning all these ideas, and Brent was, and everybody else is like, what are we doing here?
and they're like, that sounds like we're going to have to put in some work here. I thought we were just coming for the beef and cheddar. No.
And it was all right, let's start meeting every 2 weeks. And by the next meeting, it was just Brent and I. And that's how we became friends. So we just kept meeting every couple of weeks. But and so when it was hard, because I had a business, like a graphic design and programming. I started doing a little programming and consultancy business when I started, but I had to quit that, because when you having a business is full time. So when you're doing that, you can't find clients if you have a test tomorrow. Yeah, so I had to go back into regular hour kind of jobs. And then when Alex came along, it became really tough, but everything works out. Even at that time, the career-wise, I got a bigger graphic design job, and things work out. If you're following what you like and you're always being positive and doing the stuff that you want to do, I have a belief that things kind of fall into place when they need to.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if it sounds like both of y'all are kind of sort of maybe not as the term is intended, serial entrepreneurs, but just in the sense that y'all are always looking for these projects to do that, these projects become hobbies more than hobbies are hobbies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually a problem with us usually, because we have too many projects where it's we have to park that for now and do this thing,
you end up the quote, I think who was it? It was David Allen. We actually were fortunate,
right?
Really lucky that he said yes.
It was a good interview too.
He had he had no business saying yes to us compared to his audience size, but he's huge. He's got over 1 million Twitter followers. So but that was amazing, right? And he is the one who, I think he said, he coined, you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. And Andrew and I really, when you're spinning up ideas, and then we both spin up ideas, so we feed off each other, right? So we're going down these rabbit holes, and we'll get together to focus on getting the book out, and then next thing you know, we've got 10 new ideas, and we really spend half of our time whenever we meet face to face throwing everything out, and saying, well, no, that's a cool idea, but we can't, that doesn't fit, and here's kind of where we're at. And so we've really had to sort of learn some discipline there, and I think it's worked well. I mean, we have dabbled, we've done a couple other things, a couple other podcasts we kind of played around with and different things, and Andrew actually does a couple other podcasts, but you just don't have all the time in the world when you're, have children. You want to live out the fact that you're intentional and you're present with them. So you need to have time with them. And that's what I want to do. I wouldn't want to do it any other way. And then work, and then relationships. And so, yeah, you can only do so much. So that's one of the reasons why I think he and I would both love to eventually find some way to provide enough value to people to eat products or whatever it is, but not in a hokey way. So we really don't have anything for sale yet. And at some point when we do, hopefully it'll be, maybe a game, maybe like a board game or a card game or something.
That'd be fun.
That's like maybe a cool resource for, being a good parent. Like we've got some ideas there, but we need to provide value, and if we can't do that, we're not going to.
It's to provide value and make sure it's something that we are passionate about making, because we literally met for 2 years every 2 weeks at an Arby's.
It's not an exaggeration.
And for 4 or 5 hours every 2 weeks. And we would meet and we went through different website ideas, different app, like stuff that were great ideas. And we'd always like, okay, this is it. So let's start mapping it out. We'd map out all the programming stuff and we'd say, all right, 2 weeks, we're gonna get together. Let's talk about what we've done. And we'd always come back. It's like, yeah, I was thinking, I don't know if we just never hit upon. And that's why when we hit upon this podcast idea, it was the least lucrative idea we could have come up with, but it was the only.
Maybe up front.
Zero.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it may be the least lucrative up front, but if podcasting is one of those things. It's like YouTube. You don't play the short game, you play the long game. And if you play the long game and you do it well and you do it right, like you guys have been doing, like honestly, to hear that the ebook is going to be a freebie, it surprises me. I figured it'd be something that would be, it's your first product that y'all are putting out there to see what the response is and stuff like that. And the typical little ebook price of, anywhere from like $4 or $5 or $6. That's what I was expecting. So the fact that y'all are still going for value, like just from like a podcasting online business, like everything they say, like
it's super dumb,
man. No, y'all are paving the path that will continue to pay dividends hand over fist in the long run, it sounds like.
Well, what we're trying to do, I think, I couldn't even do it any other way. I have always, ever since I've grown up, I was what you would categorize as like a sensitive kid, and my dad's that way. And I mean, I'm not my dad. My dad's not that way. You'll hear him if you've ever listened to him. My son is that way. And what I'm trying to do is kind of coach my son, but I have always valued, and I didn't know how to sort of, no one coached me on that, right? Because no one really understood that that's like a fine thing to be. Like it's perfect. You can be a male and be tough and macho and still have like a really strong heart about things and care about things, right? And I care about other people a lot. Like I have friends and I really do value those relationships. And so what I think has happened as a natural byproduct of that is, for me and my side, is that I'm going to try to just provide value for you and try to help you become the best parent I know how to help you become, by connecting you with people who know how to do it better than me. But by and me and Andrew putting these things together, and we put it all together and we're like, well, it's like 20,000 words, whatever it is. Yeah, we could charge some money for that. Probably could. People do. But let's, just give it to people, because if they're trying to be a good dad and they get this and they're connected and they're listening to podcasts, then at some point down the road, if we have something for sale, they might want to back us on that. They might want to support that. They might see, hey, these guys really care about me being the best possible father I can be, and in a fun way. And they're really trying to put something together that's valuable for me. So yeah, I'm with these guys, like you said, for the long haul. So we're trying to make relationships, and hopefully those will matter over time, and
yeah, and it's
so
not
far
even,
it seems to work.
Yeah, and it's not even as calculating too. Is that because we still feel like, not even call it a brand because that sounds like it, but just this community and what this whole show's been about. Like I said, we started before we knew what it was really about, and the kids format came. And then also we think these roundtable things are like some of the most defining things about this show now. So we're still figuring out what this show is about. And so as we came up with those roundtable rules, that was part of taking a year and a half of doing this and kind of coalescing it down to just these things that we've been talking about over and over and over again. And so you're like, okay, this is starting to become some kind of, because again, we started to learn. And as we've learned, it's like, these are the lessons and the things we've been talking about. And the book is one of those things. It's like, again, like I said, when we were writing it, we were also discovering what those things were really about too. So it's more like not just like this is a new product and this is thing. We still feel like we're kind of establishing who we are to the people that don't know who we are in that way, because and trying to take down any barriers of entry, because like you said, it's real, and I'm sensitive too. Like our shtick in the show is that we have fun. We're not goofy, not cheesy. Hopefully, we're just normal dads, but we also can just switch to being totally honest with being, sensitive. I cry at every movie and stuff. So like, that's not whatever. It's not even a big deal, but we think that's a great message in the way we talk to our kids, and we treat them like little people, and all those things we think is such a great message for parents and dads that don't think about that stuff. So we feel having that book is something that there's no barrier to entry. Just hey, check it out. Look, because this is the coalescing of all these ideas.
Yep.
And hopefully there are some dads listening that maybe they don't raise their hand, maybe they're not in their group, maybe they're a little bit more on the macho side. And I mean, I've got it in me, you know what I mean? I've definitely grown up. My dad was DI, drill instructor on Parris Island, Marine Corps. So, I mean, that side of me is very well developed now too. But I'm grateful for that, because it sort of molded me into this weird hybrid daywalker kind of thing, So, I mean, I'm completely comfortable, with my daughters and just being super vulnerable with them. But I think what translates on the show, I hope, is that we're able to be vulnerable and talk about these things and how we feel and what we think inside in a way that, I'm unapologetic about it. Maybe, okay, we mess up, but, we're just going to pull back the curtain and kind of show where our fears are, kind of show where we think this is good. And hopefully people aren't having those conversations in their life as easily, particularly men.
And that's why the roundtable was neat, because especially the spanking one we just did, to see 4 other dads share that honestly too. That's when we, like Brent and I, we always discuss stuff after each interview and after each roundtable, and we were just in shock after we did that one, because we were so. He says I was so nervous. I just didn't know what to expect, because they've all been like, yeah, we love Star Wars, we like things, and we've all been and that was the first time we went into a topic that I don't know what people are going to think. Are they going to get into a fight? I don't know. I mean, we're not going to get into a fight with them, but we don't know when we bring people on the show. So, but everybody was so honest and respectful, and it was exactly the type of conversation and the type of thought process that everybody has, the type of thing we're trying to promote always, that we were just floored by it. We're like, that's amazing.
Definitely different perspectives.
Right.
And, people were vulnerable, but yet everybody came away still, I think, better for it and better men for it, because the idea that a man is a particular thing, I think that society needs to move past that. A man is being able to, talk about spanking and figure out the best and care about their kids and care about all those things, and, evolve into a better, society, hopefully, through, because we're affecting the next generation of kids. This isn't, and it matters to me what your children do and what their children do who come on the show. It matters to me. And I don't expect you all to agree with everything that I say or anything like that, but it's great that you're out there thinking about it and you're trying to find things. You're trying to be engaged as a parent, because hopefully we'll be able to, leave a mark on this next generation and pass the torch, where hopefully not everything's completely destroyed, and we can give them some hope for the future.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. We got to try though.
Yeah. And I mean, so you're talking about different things that are just, these are, for a matter of speaking, these are issues of the heart, right? And it's funny where we find, and I'm sure you've experienced this, because I've experienced this in the couple of things that I've attempted to write, but you've said it actually explicitly, that as you're writing through this ebook about the different rules of the roundtable, you actually start to learn what they mean on a deeper level. And I've had maybe a couple of times where I've just sat down and written an attempt at a blog post. And it's interesting what happens, I find, when you just sit down and you start writing about whatever it is, be it parenting or something relationally, football, your fantasy league, like it doesn't matter what it is that when you sit down and write, there's something that happens. I think that when you just take time, you sit down and you just start writing about whatever it is, there's something that just kind of cements whatever that is into who you are.
Right.
And so, you know, things like the ebook that's coming up, or just sitting down and talking about parenting and all the stuff that y'all talked about so far, and the few interviews that y'all have done and stuff like that, like, it's that positive reinforcement, that positive, self-assuring, like, the fake it till you make it kind of aspect that, at least at this point for me, with only a 2-year-old and a 2-week-old, and
busy,
still oh man, yes, but it's still, I still feel very much like I'm in that role of you fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? And so the fact that the reminder is there that you do have to be intentional, that nothing can be led to happenstance and stuff like that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm having a conversation with my 2-year-old and she'll throw out something that I just completely didn't expect. And it's like, oh, that's because she watches a lot of shows on it.
Right.
8 and 11.
Oh, that's going to be fun. But it's because, you know, right now, especially these last 2 weeks, she's had a crap ton of screen time. I mean, just like it tenfold than she normally does. But I'm helping mom and baby. I'm paying attention to her. I've got to keep an eye on stuff for work just to be able to help and stuff like that. And, you know, people coming over to bring meals and like having to take care of all that. And like, she's had a lot of screen time, and I'm actually kind of nervous when things go back to normal, how we're going to readjust her back down to like an acceptable, not all day on her Kindle kind of thing. Because sure, there's great shows, but it isn't how she needs to be living either. So I'm wondering how do you balance your screen time with your kids? Because your kids are older and they can do so much more on the tablets than even a 2-year-old can. So how do y'all balance that kind of stuff?
So for me, it's hard still, you know, because the screens are always there, and, you know, they get bored and they're like, okay, we need to go outside. And so there's technology, particularly a router that we might actually interview the guys. There's ways to do it that actually will block it. There's apps and things, but you know, I think part of it is trying to give them opportunities to do things with you. You know, like I said, I'm kind of got into board games, kind of the second coming. I grew up playing them, and we got some games from, we're not fully affiliated or anything like that, but Game Right, they've got some pretty cool kids games, Sleeping Queens, I think it's called, a couple other ones. They've got a lot of games that are not totally boring for adults, but yet the kids can still play them. And, you know, just doing some things like that are engaging, coloring, and trying to get them to do activities. Now, you know, my youngest, Kenna, she is addicted to YouTube videos. Oh my gosh, it's insane. And so that's a battle, because she's also our strongest willed child. So that one is a daily thing. Honestly, Kyle, it's just a daily thing where we're, you know, and we need to establish some hard boundaries. We're actually Shannon and I are having conversations around quite a few things, and that's one of them, you know, about how we want to proceed, because it's really become kind of an issue. It wasn't for a long time, really, and then it kind of is a little bit now. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we, kind of in your boat, just at an older age, you know, kind of like, okay, how do we go back down and take it back down and taper it off? So I think maybe weaning them might help. And so we're going to try with Kenna. We're not going to try to go from, you know, 90 to 0. We're going to probably try to go to 80 and 70 and kind of wean it back. And again, try to find things that are fun for her to do outside of that, you know, and engage with her. So luckily, the three of them, they have playmates around. So then I think you'll find that too. That'll work to some extent, because the girls will play baby dolls and stuff and all that. Yeah. So
that's the key too. Like you said, Brent, is that I found that the best thing, the way you kind of sidestep that stuff is to provide alternatives. I mean, if the parent says stop doing that, and they're like, "What am I going to do?" I was like, "I don't know, just stop doing that." You know, they don't. But if you go and like, "No, let's listen to some music. Let's have a dance party. Let's go draw some stuff. Let's do some things." You know, because I found that they might pitch a fit, but sometimes in that alternative's there, and we're just going to go do something else, or I'll go outside and play with you, or I'll go, you know, they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And Alex will put, even though she's addicted, she'll put it down. But
it's a really hot topic. I mean, we've had multiple interviews on the show from different psychologists and things like that, and I don't think anybody knows exactly. You know,
No.
I mean, there's some good ideas,
Well,
definitely
and-
some good ideas, but
And what I was going to say too, and then as they get older, you also have the problem. Brent, I know, has this thing too, where once Alex got around 5, it's like I can show her a bunch of cool nerd stuff. So it becomes this thing where, like on a weekend, if we're tired or whatever, whatever's going on, sometimes it becomes like, let's just watch this movie. Like you want to just do that, you know what I mean?
I want to watch The Force Awakens
Yeah,
again too.
you're the one guilty of putting them in front of the TV because like I want to watch this. I mean, that's again a bonding experience and too. But it's like sometimes her screen time is because most of the time on these weekends I might be showing
Different
her
categories
too
of
much stuff
screen time.
sometimes. Yeah. So but doing that all the time is not great either. So I mean it all. It's just a weird. You always feel like you're not doing it right. That's really.
But you know, one of the other rules, and maybe we should have mentioned this earlier, is of the roundtable is we forgive ourselves,
Right.
And I think it's
Sure,
really
yeah.
important to know that you're making an effort, you're trying, you're seeking resources, you're doing the best you can. I think that's going to end up forming a bond with your child that will ultimately be one of the biggest indicators on how they are able to handle their life and manage those kinds of things as they go. You know, you're going to try to teach them discipline, you're going to try to teach them all those things, but ultimately, and even with Cody, I see it a lot now. I'm not gonna, and that's why I've been somewhat reluctant to kind of like just define the boundaries myself, even though. And I know I'm kind of a mixed bag on that, but the reason why is because more and more, and I talk to Cody all the time. I say, son, I have to raise you to sort of manage yourself. That's what ultimately the goal is, not for me to tell you what to do, is to kind of less and less and kind of hopefully help you. Now I have to keep you safe, and I have to try to do what I can to keep things from being damaging. But there's also the school of thought that if you withhold it from them, that you're going to make them even want it more. So
Right.
it's a tough thing,
It is, and it's something that screen time is something I ask just about everybody. I've asked everybody that I've had on the question, because the answer varies from circumstance to circumstance. The time of week, even it just depends on what's going on. So it's something that, like I said, it's something that like right now she's definitely getting too much. But on the flip side, there is a little bit of a reward because, like I said, we can have full-blown conversations and she'll respond with things that I never knew she would respond with.
Right.
And it's in context.
Yep.
And she's only 2. And it's just like, wow, that's amazing.
I'll tell you something.
My wife and I look at each other all the time and we're like, more specifically, my wife will ask me, she's like, where did she come up with this stuff? I'm like, her shows. Either Princess Sophia or Daniel Tiger or Curious George, or it depends on what the context of the piece of the conversation was. It's okay. Tangent. Do y'all watch the shows that your kids watch too?
I do more now.
Yeah, more
Now,
as they get older. Well, I used to watch those
I've watched Daniel Tiger and all of them.
We had Dog McStuffins and all that stuff.
Yep. So it's interesting. I can tell. I've either by proxy or by force watched so much of her shows that it's like, oh no, she picked that up from this show or that up from that show, or what have you, based off of what was on the TV recently or what she was watching recently.
When part of you, and that's the thing too, is like we fear screen times being this evil thing because it's such a big deal now with the devices, but then I also think back to when I was a kid and I watched a lot of TV. Not when I was so little, but when I was, like Cody's age, Brent. Like we watched so much
video
TV.
Games, and then
I did all that stuff, and part of that is what makes my nerd core now. You know what I mean? That's when I like it. So it was such a formative thing in my personality, and I played, but I did play outside and did a lot of things too. So it's just like. I think the big key is just hopefully they won't be like a zombified by it. That's the thing what everybody's really scared of. Because
and don't sit there and say, "Oh, y'all should go outside and play." Encourage them to come out and play with you.
Yeah, go. That's
know
the
what I mean?
secret.
Do some of
something
that.
with
Do some
them.
of that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
And that's always where the success lies, is when mom or dad can go do something.
Right, and it's your job to and it's our jobs to say, like I said,
Model
show them the other things, like how cool the rest of the world is, and frankly they'll do it. I mean, I've been the proudest moments I've had with Alex, and she's like, "What do you want to play iPad?" She's like, "No, I'm gonna go dress up, and he's like, okay, awesome, there you go. So that's fun, you know. So yeah, that's the goal. It's like Brent said, if you make them do it, they're gonna rebel. But if you show them positive alternatives that are just as interesting, they'll, you know, it's hard though. It's easy.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. We don't, the evidence, you know, the jury's still out a little bit on the ramifications of all this stuff. So there's a couple schools of thought, and there's, you know, evidence and statistics to back up every point of view. So it's a little tricky. You know, I think that you definitely can feel as a parent when it's skewed and when it's off. And I think you definitely need to get yourself into action and don't be so connected to your own phone that you dismiss that or you don't pay attention to that. Because what happens when they get older and they're on their phones or devices all the time, and then they just don't even really remember their childhood? Because you know, when you're zoned in like that,
they were
and you just
entertained the entire time. Yeah,
just gone. You know, that's hopefully that's not going to happen too much. But
yeah,
one can hope. I'm curious, when y'all were having kids, were there any books that y'all read that were like extremely helpful, or quite the opposite, extremely useless?
I didn't read parenting books.
I didn't either. So
I didn't read any parenting books. I remember we had like
digital high five.
We had like a sleep book when Alex was having a problem sleeping when she was like 1 or 2.
Go the F to sleep.
Not that one.
Oh,
that's what I said.
Have you heard the classically narrated edition
I
with
think
Samuel L.
so.
Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh no, I've heard
the audiobook version of it. Yeah.
Oh, what's her name? Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner. That's funny.
that one was
just because it's Jennifer
charming
Garner
and sweet.
Yeah, but it's still F-bomb. So
yeah, but Samuel Jackson,
the way she said it in such a sweet and charming way, it was hilarious.
Yes, she did. It was funny. No, for me, I probably read. You know, I was reading. I don't know
blogs and articles and stuff like that. Maybe
self-development type stuff. You know, self-help. I hate that label. Just stuff that I think expands your mind about psychology. I think there's been a lot of headway made in the areas of like psychology and these kinds of areas that have really can benefit people if as long as they take the stigma off of it. You know, and I read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and you know, I didn't get that as a kid. I didn't have that. My mom worked and my dad wasn't really engaged with really teaching us that or guiding us that. So, and most parents probably don't, you know, because they don't know that stuff. And so I got a lot out of that. I really got a lot out of that. I mean, I literally, candidly, I was 2 weeks. I don't even know if Andrew knows this. 2 weeks I was laying in bed depressed early on. This was before my son was born, but couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks and read that book, and it got me out of bed. So and I say that because, you know, your mentality is so much a product of your thoughts, and what you put into your mind matters so much. So yeah, that's and then ever since then I read. Now we're getting to talk to people who do parenting things, and we're kind of learning. But I think a lot of the parenting things really come into play when your kids get a little bit older.
Yeah. Like I didn't, because going into it, we had discussions about Alex and how the parents who wanted to be and all that stuff. So it wasn't, we're going into this like, I don't know, we're just having kids. So there was an intentionality behind that. But then you dive in and you're like, oh, they just asked me that. It's when they get older, like 1 or 2, and like you get into the screen time stuff, or you get into these other issues where you have to go back. But again, I did. If you listen to a bunch of the shows, especially with Dr. Mike, my neurotic nature with Alex's health at times, I've looked at many of mommy blogs or forums where like, what is she doing this? What does that mean? And they're like, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay.
Dr. Mike is Pediacast. He's our resident pediatrician. Well, he didn't really. We kind of backed him into a corner on air, and he said he would do it. But
that's awesome. Well, we're running at the end of our time, and it's funny because I can hear my daughter screaming in the background.
That's real life.
That is real life, absolutely. So I'm going to ask this one final question, and this will be posed to both of y'all as well, obviously. If you are stuck on an island with the family, a Blu-ray player, and a TV, and you've only got one movie to watch, what are you stuck watching?
Andrew, go first, because I know you know yours.
Outside of anything else, but you got to go Star Wars. It's a classic. It's a classic.
But which one?
New Hope, probably. Just because I like Empire better, but
Of course.
New Hope is the quintessential Joseph Campbell mythic tale. Like, if you got one, if you're on this island trying to raise your kids, those has all the lessons of life in that right there. I mean, I don't know any other movie. I mean, there's other great movies, but out of context, in a vacuum, I can't not say Star Wars.
Yeah. Sounds like a winner.
So yeah, I can play that, but you did say with the family, and I just recently asked my family individually what their favorite Star Wars was, and collectively it would have to be the new one for me.
That's fair,
because their votes they outnumber me, so that's where we'll have to go. And there's enough there, and I'm optimistic about the next two films. So when I watch it later, hopefully those films would be out, and I'd have that kind of story to frame the whole reference there.
Yeah,
but,
Alex would probably pick that one too, actually. So
and the CGI and stuff's really cool, and there's enough throwback, and you got when they got back in the Millennium Falcon and the whole it's well done. So
I would have to agree. Cool. Well, thank you, fellas. Where can people follow each of you individually or collectively on the interwebs?
Well, we have our website. It's digitaldads.fm. On Twitter, I'm at Andrew_Curry. That's Currie.
Keep going, man. You know how to do it.
Oh, yeah. And Brent is at Brent Bash, like Hulk Smash.
Yep, like Hulk Smash.
Awesome. And for any links or anything like that, you'll find them in the show notes down below. And thanks again, guys, and thank you for listening.
Oh, and one more thing real quick. If you guys want to come hang out with us in
absolutely.
Facebook, we really enjoy the Facebook group. And, Ryan's there. A lot of cool guys are in there. By all means, you're welcome. Just Digital Dads Roundtable. Roundtable is 2 words. So just ask for an invite. We're happy to have you in there, and we talk about all kind of nerdy stuff and maybe kids from time to time.
From time to time.
Yeah.
And being a part of that group, I can say it's definitely worth the join. That's for sure. Thank you again to Brent and Andrew for joining me today, and I definitely encourage you, if you are interested, go check out their podcast. Listen to episode 55 like we talked about as kind of a great starting point. Go back and listen to the episode where he has the talk and enjoy that for what it was and learn from it. Also, if you really enjoyed these guys, which I personally do, definitely go join the roundtable, because, for example, right now we are in the middle of fantasy football with a 20-team league. That's right. We get down, we love what we love, and fantasy football is one of those things. So go find them on the internet, enjoy the heck out of what they have, because there's some great guys. And on a final note, thank you very, very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with these 2 guys. Leave me a comment, a review, tweet at me, Instagram me, Facebook me, email me. You can find me all over the internet at Geek and Dad. You can email me personally, Kyle@geekanddad.com. And if you'd leave a review, it'd be really helpful to know where I can improve, what was great, what wasn't so great. And also reviews helps get the word out to everybody else. So I thank you all again very much for listening, and until next time, geek on.